Is this a sign of deterioration, or just a silent phase before the Big Bang? Why did Jin look so different when he returned to the Tonight Show stage with Jimmy Fallon? Is the gleam of the majestic Empire State Building no longer able to mask the fatigue signals of a legend named Jin? And why did Jimmy suddenly allude to his old album, Happy, in the middle of promoting the album Echo? What the hell is going on? When the New York night sky was decorated with purple highlights from the Empire State Building to celebrate BTS's Jin's return to the music scene with his solo album Echo, no one expected that the night would be the beginning of a heated debate that divided the hearts of fans. Everything looks magnificent. Everything looks perfect. But one comment from Jimmy Fallon changed everything. Jimmy, with his trademark relaxed but biting style, asked questions that made the atmosphere suddenly quiet. It's so different from Happy. What changed, Jin? The question sounds ordinary, just a musical comparison of two works by one artist. But for the millions of ARMY who watched live or through replays, it was like a bomb being thrown in a crowd. Because it's not just the tone that's different. Jin's energy that night also felt like a shadow of himself. This is where everything changes. Is it true that Jin's appearance for Echo's album is less shining than when he promoted Happy in November 2024? Is it a matter of production, burnout, pressure from the label, or something more personal and painful? Jin, with a faint smile that never really reached his eyes that night, replied calmly that Echo was a reflection of something deeper, quieter, and perhaps more painful. But why do his eyes look like they want to cry? Why does his voice tremble a little when he says that Echo is a journey I shouldn't have taken alone? Is this a hidden code? An emotional signal that suggests that Echo is not just an album, it is a message. And if so, to whom is the message addressed? Some fans speculated that Fallon's comments were part of the script, a sneaky way for the production team to provoke controversy in order to make the album's popularity soar. But for those who pay attention to Jin's body language, they are sure he is not ready for the question. And that raises one bigger question. Was Jin forced to return to the spotlight prematurely? While Happy is a celebration of Jin's post-conscription freedom, Echo's album actually sounds like a love letter that didn't arrive, or maybe an apology that never got to be said. The notes are low, the lyrics are ambiguous, and the musical arrangement takes the listener into an empty space that feels cold. Is this a reflection of Jin's true emotional state? Even more disturbing is how fans began to compare her physical appearance. During the promotion of Happy, Jin looked full of energy, with a wide smile and a piercing gaze. But this time, even when the studio lights were shining on him, it was like the genie wasn't really there. As if his body was in New York, but his soul was left somewhere else. Somewhere he doesn't want to talk about. Then, who actually chose the main song of Echo? Who decided that Jin should appear on The Tonight Show even though his condition doesn't look ideal? And, most surprisingly, why did Jimmy Fallon say that Happy felt more like Jin than Echo did? Was Jimmy just being opinionated? Or does he know something we don't? Something that kept the genie silent for a few seconds longer than it should have been. These questions provoked an emotional storm among the ARMY. The hashtag #ProtectJin immediately trended across multiple platforms, with thousands of fans questioning the agency's decision and voicing concerns that Jin was living something he didn't fully want. A former choreographer who once worked with Jin during Happy even wrote a long post that has now been deleted. In the post, he implied that Jin is a person who will never refuse the stage unless he is hiding his pain. The words are like keys that open up a wider space of questions. Is Echo an album released under pressure? Are drastic changes in tone, style, and energy a reflection of the wounds that are being hidden? And did Jimmy Fallon open the veil by accident? In the interview segment, Jimmy laughed and said, "I was listening to Happy again yesterday. It still makes me smile. But Echo, it makes me think." The sentence, although it sounds neutral, implies a sharp comparison. And Jin, despite trying to remain professional, lowered his head for a moment. His eyes weren't looking at the camera. His mouth uttered words, but his chest felt like it was holding something back. Now the question is not only about the quality of the album. This is no longer about Happy versus Echo. It's a matter of mental state, industry pressure, and the boundary between professionalism and humanity. What's really going on behind the Echo release? Is this album really Jin's work or the result of a compromise with the label? Why the moment that should have been the return of the star precisely feels like a silent farewell and the most heartbreaking? Why did Jimmy Fallon, of all people, choose that moment, in the middle of the Empire State Building spotlight, to compare the genie to himself in the past? Is this a covert form of concern? Or the beginning of a much deeper story, about a star lost among glitter and silence? This article will continue to evolve as reactions from fans emerge, comments from Jin's peers, and perhaps answers from Jin himself. But one thing's for sure, that night on The Tonight Show wasn't just about album promotion. It was a stage where the heart of a legend spoke without words, and the world could only guess what he really wanted to say. And now, we can only ask, is the genie calling us, or slowly saying goodbye? When Jin again stepped out of the NBC studio that night, surrounded by camera light and the cheers of the fans, there was something not seen before. He smiled, yes. He waved, of course. But when his gaze accidentally meets the camera lens, it seems like it holds an unspoken world. We've seen the genie shine. We witnessed his sincere warmth while promoting Happy. But this time, amidst the spotlight that even reached the top of the Empire State Building, the aura was just like, fade. Is the genie happy when performing there? Or is it just living a forced obligation? Shortly after the performance aired, fan forums exploded. The hashtag Jin deserves better started creeping up, alongside hashtag Echo Unspoken and hashtag Fallon controversy. Someone even shared a clip of Jin's slow hand movements in which he, before sitting down with Jimmy, briefly holds his chest. The short movement is said to be a signal from someone trying to regulate the heart rate due to excessive anxiety. Or crying in silence. Jin is not just an artist. He's a human being, wrote an army officer from the Philippines. And that night, I felt like he was asking for help, but no one could hear. Theories began to emerge. Some have suggested that the Echo album should not have been released, as several leaked demos of the songs were uploaded anonymously 3 weeks before the release. Another theory is that Jin wanted the project to be an independent project, but HYBE pressured him to do a full promotion for a post-military strategy. Jin wants to speak from his heart, but the label wants him to speak from the stage, said an insider account that previously predicted the release of the astronaut. The post was soon deleted, but the screenshot has been spread everywhere. Is it true that Jin had a dispute with HYBE's creative team because his artistic vision for Echo was considered too dark? Is that the reason why the lyrics of his songs, especially in the tracks Horizon Without Light and Window Pane, sound like a desperate call from someone who is struggling not to give up? In Horizon Without Light, there is a surprising line. If I speak too honestly, they will mute my microphone. So I sang while hiding. Is it just poetry? Or a silent warning that the genie is trying to say something that shouldn't be said? Fans also noticed something that seemed small but evocative. There were no big Echo promotional posters in Seoul like when Happy released. There is no big banner in Gangnam Station. There was no giant poster in front of HYBE in sight. Even on Instagram, promotional posts appear less and less personalized. There are only 2 teaser photos, and both use a somber gray tone, almost like a memorial portrait. Why did it all happen? Some blame the labels. Others began to suspect that perhaps Jin deliberately wanted the Echo campaign to be less bombastic, as if he wanted to share his story, but was not ready to bear the brunt of the world's expectations. And one more thing. Echo doesn't have big fan meeting or showcases, something that has always been a tradition with every BTS solo album release. Why is it different this time? Back to the Jimmy Fallon show. Many re-examined Jin's expression as Jimmy began to discuss Happy. I loved Moonlight Pizza. It was hilarious. You looked so alive back then, Jimmy said with a laugh. But after that sentence, a noticeable change. For a moment, Jin looked down. His lips moved slightly, like holding something back, as if to say, in the past, I was alive. Is that too sentimental? Maybe. But hasn't the genie always been the personification of honesty wrapped in elegance? And the Empire State Building, why is that symbol so important? When Echo was released, the iconic building was filled with purple light as a tribute to Jin. But unlike Happy Hour, this time there is no public countdown. There is no video documentation of the preparation. Everything feels quiet. One of the fans realized that the purple color used was not like BTS's typical color, but a pale purple, grayish nuance. It felt more like a goodbye than a celebrat. When news of Jin's different expression on The Tonight Show began to spread, it didn't take long for the speculation to spill over into the global fan community. Many are beginning to realize it's not just about looking less than satisfactory, it's about something much more personal, deeper, unspoken, and even more shockingly, some armies are starting to connect Echo with something bigger, a hidden narrative that Jin has been cultivating since 2022. From the astronaut to Moonlight Pizza, every release seems to have some kind of code. And now, all of those pieces seem to be geared toward one purpose. Echo. Someone in the Weverse community claimed to find an extra page in the physical release of the Echo album, hidden behind the back cover. The page was not mentioned in the booklet's table of contents and was not discussed in any official promotion. The page contains a Jin handwriting in vaguely faded Hangul. The text reads, "If you are reading this, it means that I have managed to convey something that I cannot say directly. These songs are not just songs. They are traces. Read the notes, not the lyrics. Listen to the silence between the lines." That's where I was. Those words hit fans like a tidal wave. Suddenly, it all made sense. Why does the Echo sound so empty, yet touching? Why does the music tend to be minimalistic, almost like a murmur? Perhaps because it is not music to be heard ordinarily, it is to be felt with the heart. The BTS members haven't said much. RM, in a short broadcast on Weverse Live, simply said, "Hyung is going through something important in his life. We respect him." The sentence sounded neutral, but when he said it, his voice was choked. Jimin had left a comment in the form of 3 dots. Many thought it was a typo, but some soldiers believe it's a silent symbol of meaning, like hinting that something can't be said, even by those closest to it. Jungkook, who is usually very supportive of the members during solo promotions, simply reposted Echo's streaming link with no caption, no video reaction, no long comments, just one repost. And that's it. Feels heavy. Oh, they know something we don't. This is where the theory of the contract of silence appears. Some fans have speculated that Jin and HYB were arguing over the artistic direction of Echo, and the members may have been asked to stay out of the mix in order to maintain internal stability. But is it possible? HYB harboring something much more sensitive. Some accounts on X, formerly Twitter, said that there was a personal reason why Echo went dark, because Jin experienced a loss. Not just fatigue, but a huge emotional loss, whether it's a relationship, trust, or even somebody dies. Echo an album of grief. Adding to the heat of speculation, one of Echo's music videos, Silent Observatory, shows Jin sitting alone in an empty room full of black and white photographs. On its back wall, a calendar with a specific date circled around it is pasted, November 19th. Fans immediately combed through the date and found that November 19th is the same date as the birthday of a BTS staffer who is rumored to have died suddenly in 2023. Although HYB has never made an official statement about it, this rumor has long been circulating in the underground fandom community. Is Jin remembering someone? Was Echo his way of perpetuating the figure in a way that only he could understand? And let's go back for a moment to Jimmy Fallon. Part of the interview was censored for broadcast TV, but was captured in an off-air video that was leaked to Reddit for a few minutes before being deleted. I end the clip. Jimmy says, "So, this album feels different. Sadder, perhaps. Is that what you wanted to express? Or were you told to?" Before Jin answered, there was a long pause. He stared at the crew. He then just smiled, a little smile that didn't reach his eyes, and said, "I made this album so I wouldn't have to explain it." Instantly, fans understood. Jin was conveying something, not with words, but with songs. With lyrics that can only be understood if you know what it's like to lose your voice when you want to talk the most. And this is the biggest question of all. Are we witnessing an artist who is slowly losing his freedom, or someone who is slowly healing himself from old wounds? Echo is not just an album. It is a mirror. And in that reflection, we see a different Genie. Jin Young no longer stood proud